Hey there, let's play the Countryle for November 12th. Yesterday's answer was Finland. Oh, we're staying in Europe. A warmer country? Gee, warmer than Finland. That's surprising. So it's not Iceland. South of Finland. Let's see. Um, Southern, larger, warmer. Oh, are we in the Balkans? I hope we're not in the Balkans. Let's go Greece and see where we end up. Okay, northwest of Greece. Cooler and smaller. Okay, that actually does narrow it down. Let's see, northwest of Greece. More than 5 million people, but fewer than 10. Huh. Northwest of Greece. Switzerland? Question mark? I have no idea. Okay, got the right population. East of Switzerland and slightly warmer. Is it Austria? Actually, don't know Austria's population. It is Austria. You know, I was going to guess Austria, and then I thought, nah, it can't be Austria. It must be Switzerland. Speaking of Austria, I just watched the first season of a show on Netflix called Die Kaiserin, or The Empress, which is about the Empress Elizabeth, who was married to Kaiser Franz Josef of Austro-Hungary. He was the emperor up until the end of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but this takes place at the beginning of his reign and when he married Elizabeth, and it's just fun to watch. One thing I've noticed, I've watched a few period pieces from other countries, and it dawned on me that a lot of what goes on is part of the historical sort of general, how would you put it? The cultural knowledge of the country, right? The stuff you learn in grade school about your country's history. And when you come in and watch it as a person who's not from that region and who hasn't studied it much, there's stuff that's taken for granted that the audience is going to know, that if you are not part of the intended audience, you don't know those things. And so I had to go look up, who is this guy? Who is this woman? What year is this? Because they didn't even say the year at the beginning. They just assume it's the mid-19th century. It was just, it's happened to me before. There's another show I liked that was an Austrian show called Freud. It's sort of about Sigmund Freud, but it's a little bit fantastical. There's got some magic elements and stuff. It actually was really good. I enjoyed it a lot. But again, it takes place in the late 19th century in the Austro-Hungarian Empire in Vienna, and there was a lot of stuff that they talked about, wars and such, that aren't part of my cultural history because I'm American. And so I highly recommend watching period pieces from other countries because you get a much different sense. You can learn about the Austro-Hungarian Empire, for example, in your history class from history books, but it doesn't have the sort of personal connection. So I compare it to if there's a period piece that took place during the Civil War in the United States, an American would already have a lot of that information in their head. And what was the Civil War? Who are some of the major players? What were the years it took place? What were some of the major, events and things leading up to it? Who's Abraham Lincoln? That kind of stuff. Whereas people from other countries who aren't going to study the U.S. Civil War extensively, because why would they? It's not part of their history, might come in and go, I don't know what year this is supposed to be. I don't know who this guy Ulysses Grant is, that kind of thing. So highly recommend checking that out, and you get a different perspective on the history you might only have learned from textbooks in, your European history class in 11th grade or 10th grade or whatever. So I just think it's cool. It's a really interesting way to get a different viewpoint on histories of countries. Another one I can recommend, sorry this video is getting long, but I like to recommend TV shows that I think are worth watching. Another one that gave me a really interesting perspective was Beauty Queen of Israel, or Beauty Queen of Jerusalem. Sorry, that's also on Netflix. And it's an Israeli show based on a book. And it's okay. I wouldn't say the story is amazing, but it really gives you a sense of what the period of the history of that area during the British mandate between World War I and World War II. and what it was like to live in Israel and Jerusalem during that time. And even though I do know a fair amount of Israeli history, and I was married to an Israeli, and I've been to Israel, there was still a lot about that period that I didn't really know very much about, or know the cultural history, or what it was actually like to live during that period. And so it gave a really interesting perspective on what it was like on the ground during that time, what it was like to be an Israeli or a Jewish person, living in Jerusalem under the British mandate. Is really, really worth watching, I think. So, anyway, those are my recommendations. Just in terms of, being a geography channel, geography and history, of course, are inextricably linked. And I really love history. And so I love watching historical fiction and adaptations and so forth from other countries, because you learn so much about how a country sees its own history, which is very cool. Anyway, hope you have a good day. As I said, leave a comment here or on the Wordle video, which is linked in the description, with a recommendation to start tomorrow's Wordle based on today's answer, which was Austria. And I will see you then for some more Countryle.